So I'm going to move over to Kevin Van Legen's school farm. Kevin, if you want to introduce yourself and just add any details about yourself.
Perfect. So yes, my name is Kevin Van Legen, and I'm a principal in East Central Alberta of two schools, actually, Concert School and Altario School. And today I'll speak quickly to the program we're running in Altario School. Altario School is K-12. Been in existence for just over 100 years now. And back in the 1980s or so, they had well over 200 students, and we've been as low as 49 students. This year we're around 60. So it's a small, rural, remote area. You could consider us in the middle of nowhere or in the middle of everywhere, depends how you look at it. So this is my family. I'm a father of 5 boys who love baseball. That's what we do. And the girls are starting to show up as the boys get older. They always told us that we would get daughters eventually, and that's starting to happen. Anyways, about our school. So when I came to Altario School in 2014, that's when it was at its lowest population, with 49. There was an old skating rink out back that hadn't been used in many years. And we decided to make that into a community garden. It kind of, the abandonment was kind of a symbol of what was happening with the community, what was happening with the school. As we had less students, we had less staff, and as we had less staff, we had less programs, which caused us again to have less students. So we decided to go the food route. And one of the reasons we decided to focus on agriculture is my first graduating class when I was here had 9 students, again, a small school. 6 of them were going to Olds College for agriculture management, which is a great program, but they didn't. And when I asked them why they were taking that program, they just said, well, I want to get into agriculture. And they didn't realize that there was quite a variety of options in agriculture and in career pathways. So we thought that as a school, if we can start showing them some career pathways at an earlier age, maybe they'll decide to do other things as well. So we started with this community garden. A year later, we had a brainwave, and it's a longer story than I'm giving you today, but we decided to raise a couple steers in that garden. Got a little grant from our agriculture society to buy shelter and some panels. We got a couple steers. In the spring of 2019, we convinced our school board to buy us a barn to expand our program. And then in June of 2019, we had an open house and a dance in our new barn, and we auctioned off one of our steers. That did amazingly well, and the steer sold for almost $40,000, which if you can sell steers for $40,000, we all should quit what we're doing and go into business. But it was great because that gave us the opportunity to really expand our program. So today, our program is, we call it a Altario student-led farm. So each year, students in grade 7 through 12 can apply for different positions that we list, and they're all managerial positions. They submit their resumes, they go through the interview process, and then we hire them into different management positions. And then based on the profitability of the farm in that year, the different positions get scholarships or money at the end of the year for the work they've done. You can kind of see in the background there where our barn's in the front corner, and then the school's in the background. So this is literally at our school, in the backyard of our school. So some of the things we have cow-calf pairs, we have sheep. We actually have our own brand now. We raise turkeys for Christmas and Easter, although we're not doing it this year because of the avian flu. We have chickens, laying hens, and broilers both. We run a little residency program up in the hills where we teach students what's on your plate. So we had that just kind of running and off the ground, and then COVID hit and it kind of started to fall apart. And speaking of student-led, so for example, you can see over here, we have pigs now. I came to school last year one day, and I had missed the day before, and the student said, hey, VL, we decided that we're going to trade a few of our sheep for some pigs, so we're going to raise pigs. So now we are in the pig business, so we raise them as well. And as with all of our product, we only take animals that can be put into the food system. So we sell the meat You see the turkeys there, you see some beef. We have bees, so we pasteurize our own honey, or unpasteurized, sorry, we bottle our own unpasteurized honey. And we do some cool things for the kids. And there you can see some castration, you can see preg checking with a cow. The students get to do that. And yeah, basically it's all inclusive farm. Most recently, in last year about this time, we received a hydroponic food modular. We got a large grant from the local food infrastructure fund to buy this food modular from Grocer is the company. They were featured on Dragon's Den back in the day. And we purchased that. So here's our team of students and a member from Grocer and staff member when they planted their very, very first crop in April of this past year. So now every week we harvest about 500 plants of leafy greens that our students are responsible for the planting, the transplanting, the harvesting, and the marketing. Here you can actually see, you might not recognize this individual on the right side, but that's Lethbridge MP Rachel Thomas. She was in the area and asked a tour. So one of the students was giving her a tour of our food modular. Because we had all this product that we were growing and all these career pathways we were exploring, we needed to do something. So we actually turned one of our, remember this was a school that had over 200 students in, so we have some space. So we took one of our classrooms and we turned it into a little store. So the students run this as well. Every Wednesday, it's open from 12 to 4. And we sell products from our school farm, and community members also bring in baking and stuff. And it's kind of a cooperative situation where people can sell out of here. You can see the fresh produce. Students make coffees and iced coffees and that kind of thing. We have a little library space in there. Very, very well attended. We also added to that program, we now have a subscription model. So we deliver boxes of produce each week to Provost, which is about 40 minutes north of here, and Concert, which is about a half an hour west of here. So our problem with our food modular right now is we have more demand than we can supply. We do supply some local families who have needs for fresh food regularly as well. It's not really a food bank, it's just we know who they are and we make sure that they get fresh produce and meat from our program. And then the newest thing that I thought I would just throw on here, and then you guys can ask questions, is I've been working because of the Grocer or the food modular. Since January of this year, we sat with a group of elders and knowledge keepers, and we've created a curriculum, the K-12 curriculum from a land-based curriculum from the First Nations perspective for all things food. And it's tied closely to the Grocer, but it actually can work as a standalone curriculum as well. So it's still not quite published. It is complete, and it's hopefully going to be published in the near future. And it really looks at food security and food sovereignty for First Nations communities, but it actually, I would suggest, would work for any community or school that wants to look at raising food from a traditional First Nations perspective. So that's the latest thing we're working on. That's the really short, closed up version of all the things that we're doing in our little school here in Altario. But it's taken a life of its own. At this point, I think the last I counted, we've received about $400,000 between donations and grants and sales. We run a profitable farm, and the issue we're facing, we're actually having a meeting about it right now, this week, Thursday night, with the community, is it's kind of taken on a business life of its own. And I'm afraid a little bit that we might be getting away from the educational component, as the demand is so great to try to, sell all this product. And that was never really the intention. The intention was to explore career pathways for students. So I don't know exactly where we're going to go next and what we're going to do. But yeah, that's our school farm in a very, very short nutshell.
I see one question there from Laura. She's asking about your curriculum. Is it going to be going public that everybody can access?
So I am not sure at this point. I believe it will be. So I'm working with the grocer, and BDO was hired to help facilitate this curriculum. When I talked to a member of grocer last week, Thursday, sounds like their intention is to try to get this out to as many communities as possible and not to tie it necessarily to having to have the grocer. I know there's a few education ministers in the province or in the country that are actually interested in it already. And so I don't know exactly what they're going to do. I know there's meetings in the next week or two. It's pretty special. I'll be honest. It's about a 60-page document, complete with learner outcomes and actually activities of what you need to do or what you could do. And I think from my teacher's perspective, in Alberta anyways, we've been mandated to teach a lot of First Nations perspectives. The mandate's there, the will's there, the need is there, but the how-to is not necessarily there. And this provides that in a really neat hands-on way. And we've also structured it, just, the elders and knowledge keepers we sat with were either Cree or Anishinaabe, but we structured it so that any community could sit down and input their own stories from their knowledge keepers and work with it as well. So it doesn't have to be just from, we're Treaty 6 here. So it could be from any treaty area.
I'm interested in how you guys went about getting your grocery grant, because we had tried to work with Colin and get one. And we found out that the grant that we were going for did not have that much for infrastructure. It was only like 5,000 for infrastructure. So it was just mainly a wage. And so if you shared how you managed to get that big a grant, because we were hearing that it was like 300,000.
So our grocer was 234,000, I believe, when we purchased it. So I had a presentation. A grandpa of a couple of my students said, "Hey, I want you to look at this." So I said, "Very interesting." I said, "I don't have $250,000 right now." He says, "Well, can we apply for a grant?" So we applied for a grant together, and we got a grant from the local food infrastructure fund for 186,000. Now, I've told that to many people, and so many people are applying to the local food infrastructure fund. So there's not going to be a ton of money there. And then the rest of the money, our division put in 40,000, and then we ran into some problems with water and whatnot. And so our Ag Society actually gave us $60,000 as well. So we're free and clear. Grocer is actually, they're setting up a lease model for schools with kind of like a get out of jail free card if it doesn't work for you, but they actually have all the financials worked out, that whether you're using it for your hot lunch program or whether you're using it to sell, it's more than sustainable, and it's even profitable for schools to have these type of have a grocer at their school or in their community. And the nice thing about the grocer, which I think appeals to more people than our, the animal component of our school farm is you can plop this anywhere, right? You can put this in a city next to a school. It looks like a 40-foot sea can, but it's nicer. That's about all, right? And as long as you have power and water, good to go.
Well, and it's also, so you were talking about keeping this going, and I just see that what you're doing really should be something that goes to other schools. But could we expect every administrator to be Kevin? No. And so it's almost like we need to develop people who do what you're doing, who mentor with you or say that they're passionate about what you're doing and learn how to do that. And then the government really should be the ones who keep that going by sustainable funding for those positions.
Yeah, you know what? Like, I mean, I'm an ideas guy. I come up with these ideas, but it's sustainable enough that I have a staff member who helps run the main part of the farm, and a different staff member that runs the grocer, and we pay him out of the profits of the farm, so it's all good. But it takes some work to get it set up. and to get it going. And you need champions to do that. There is a lot of interest out there from administrators though. But it depends. Like usually there's roadblocks, especially the animal side. That's why the grocer is a little bit more attractive because it's almost like an extra classroom. But there's usually roadblocks. Either sometimes it's from the central office, superintendent. Sometimes it's from town council. Sometimes there seems to be that it's hard to get all the parties aligned to go ahead with something like this. But I do know like there's many First Nations communities in the north that are doing this, and they're using it for their healthy foods program. If you looked at the price of lettuce lately, it's unaffordable basically, and ours is not. It's sustainable, it's local, so it works out extremely well. So I could see it coming more prevalent in the near future, just because it makes sense economically as well.
Well, especially if, Coalition for Healthy School Food are suggesting to the federal government that part of their first funding should be infrastructure funding. Well, it's a one-off. If you've got the grocer, you're golden for how many years? Like decades. So, it's kitchens, but it could also be growing opportunities. And I see Peter's here from Grand Prairie Food Bank. That's good news for food banks too, because like Kevin was saying, some of that produce goes to needy in the communities. So, that grocery is a win-win for everybody if it comes to the community.
And we're such a small community. The grocer is able to feed, I believe the number is 150 families of 4 year round. And we can't keep up. Our demand is too great. We could actually get another grocer and just grow romaine lettuce, because restaurants are calling us and grocery stores are calling us now. And I don't know that we want to do it. I don't know what our next step is. And that's why it's time for the community to kind of have this conversation. But it would be financially feasible, and we'd actually do quite well with it, and probably would be good for our school on that side. But I think if we go that route, it's more about getting adults, paying them to work, because we're not trying to get students just to be workhorses. We're using students so they can learn career pathways and they can explore different things, and it's still fun for them and educational, and not just a chore to do.
Anybody else have Colin? I see you're unmuted.
No, I was just I really liked those ideas, Kevin, and what really stuck out for me is you started off with this with a need and a nice small idea, and you'd mentioned you're an ideas guy. I'm not an ideas guy. I think I can see a good idea when one happens to slap me across the face. And oftentimes these things just sort of happen, hey, and the trick is to get out of the way when they do happen, and it's really exciting to see your plans actually of thinking that this really connects really well with some of the things that we're doing, and some of our staff at our school would be really thrilled to hear more about your project there.
I believe, Colin, you're from Grand Prairie?
High Prairie.
Oh, High Prairie.
Yeah, close to Grand Prairie.
I'm speaking at the teachers convention in Grand Prairie in March. So I don't know if teachers would be going there or not.
I'm in Grand Prairie.
Yeah,
I knew there was a Grand Prairie here.
You know what I was thinking, Kevin? It would be nice if you guys did something with the Ever Active Schools at their Shaping the Future conference. Our local school is doing a little presentation there, a little plug for them. So if anybody gets out to Shaping the Future, that's an opportunity to see what they're doing. But
Kevin, would you mind if I quickly share my screen?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just going to show you our reality here. I don't know if you can see it.
Yep.
Yeah, so that is where we're at for food security. Oops, go back. So we had a jump in the number of people. We actually serve 12,777 unique individuals in Grand Prairie. That works out to 20% of the population. 1 in 5 people are struggling with food insecurity, and 44% of them were children under the age of 18.
Wow.
So, and then we saw a spike in our seniors as well, because they're on fixed incomes.
Yeah.
So 3,000 new households since 2019. So this is the reality of what you're walking into in Grand Prairie. And so any education and awareness about the food insecurity, food crisis that we're in, that is a plus, especially for students, but just for the population as a whole.
That's good to know. It's good background. And you know, like in our community, we have needs. We're a very small community, and it's, I wouldn't say we're a poor community. There's some affluent people, but there's also families that struggle. And it's pretty nice because we're so rural, like the local or the closest food bank is 50 kilometers away. So for them to get there is tough as well. Like it's just compounds, right? So as a school, for us to be able to offer this, and we just send it home with the kids from school. We just send a bag home with them, right? It works out amazingly well that way.
Well, I think the message for me, coming with Peter talking about their issues and Kevin talking about a solution, is that communities right now, I think, are just very disconnected in the organizations, because the schools are a way to integrate, you know, more food resources into the community. I just see what Kevin is doing can be moved to other communities if they know about the potential for what Kevin is doing in other places. And it won't look the same, but there's a lot of opportunity to feed a lot more people.
Yeah, and you know, like, and again, our original reason for doing this was career pathways in agriculture, and that's been remarkably successful. We've had many students who have decided that, you know, and you know, not every student in our school has the opportunity to take over a family farm, but they still love agriculture, so they're finding other ways. You know, now agronomists, we have veterinarians, we have different students who have graduated who've gone back into agriculture in the not quite so traditional manner that they were used to in this area, which gets back to the whole trades and you know, all those different things conversation as well. So we are meeting a lot of targets, and we're meeting more targets than we really expected to, as Colin mentioned. It was a very small thing that we started, and it took on a life of its own. And there are many schools in Alberta and Saskatchewan now that are starting to try to mimic what we're doing to some extent, and it doesn't have to be the same. But getting students to see where their food comes from is really valuable learning. And I'm excited once this curriculum is officially published that we can integrate that in our school as well. And it'll be from kindergarten through grade 12, there will be, you know, intentional learning around everything we're doing.
So, sorry. The rocket over here. So I'm going to really advertise to our members that we've got this recording of both Carolyn's presentation and Kevin's presentation. And I'm sure that you guys can expect some feedback from all of our members, quite a few who are not on this today. Anyway, so I would like to thank you so much for presenting on your wonderful programs, and Carolyn for sharing what Coalition is moving on. And yeah, we'll keep in touch. Thanks very much, everybody, for participating. Have a good